Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Biobowl. I'm your host, James Schaefer. Now let's meet our two teams. From Team 1, let's give a warm welcome to Tim and Quinn. On Team 2, say hello to Julia and Casey. Let's go over the rules for the game. In order to win the Biobowl trophy, you must answer small biological questions. The first team to work their way up the ladder to the ultimate, big, and beautiful biological question will have a chance to win. We'll start with Team 1. Your first question is, what are the most important elements of a scientific experiment?
That's easy, James. You have variables in experiments that you manipulate in order to figure out results.
Actually, it's more complex than that. There are two types of defined variables, independent and dependent. Based on the experiment's hypothesis, which should be falsifiable, the variables can be tested and compared against the control.
It is important to set up experiments that have quantifiable results in order to really compare the data and come to a conclusion about the predictions you tested.
Perfect, Team 2. Team 1, you only had one small aspect of what the scientific method is really about. Designing and executing an experiment is a process that involves questioning, proper design, and data analysis. Team 2, you have moved up to the next round of questions. Team 1, you could try to jump in and steal the answer if you know it. The next question is, how do you know if a source is reliable?
It all depends on the author. The author needs to be credible on the topic that they're writing about.
Very good, Casey. That is correct. But what makes an author credible?
College degrees?
We know this. Although higher education is obviously important, doesn't necessarily give an author credibility. It's important that an author cites their sources, shows their own research, and is peer-reviewed in a professional setting.
If an author does not show where they get their knowledge from, readers can't really know if what they're reading is truly reliable. It could just be made up.
Exactly, Team 1. Authors have to prove their credibility through everything you mentioned. The review process for books, magazines, and scholarly articles is also important in order to ensure that an author is producing concise and informative material. So Team 1 and Team 2, you are now tied at the second bracket of competition. Let's do another question from this category to see who can move on to the third set of questions. The next question, open to either team, is which author is more reliable in a scientific setting? A journalist for a daily news company or a team of doctors working at the Mayo Clinic?
The team of doctors working in the Mayo Clinic would definitely be more reliable when publishing a scientific work. With journalists, there's always a high chance that there may be bias included in their reports, which makes an article less credible.
And although journalists can use credible research to support their points of view, they don't have the medical background that the Mayo Clinic doctors have. This means that these doctors have hands-on experience with the topics they write about and can include their first-hand research in their findings instead of reporting everything from an outside viewpoint.
Very good, Team 1. You have officially pushed ahead to take the lead. Now on to our last question before the big biological question. How does pseudoscience affect our daily lives?
Pseudoscience is everywhere today, especially in the diet and detox industries. We blindly believe testimonies from people who swear some product worked for them, but there is no credibility behind what they are actually saying.
Yeah, a lot of pseudoscience does not follow the scientific method we talked about earlier. And without using the scientific method to test predictions, you can't ever know for sure if a hypothesis can be accepted as correct.
Great job to both of you. I guess that means we'll move on to the final questions with both of you eligible to answer. Whoever wins this question will win the title of Biobowl champions. The final question is, how does science differ from pseudoscience?
Well, there's a few angles that can answer this question, and they all relate to our answers already. First of all, science is methodical. It's a process. In true science, there's predictions, variables, and controls in every experiment and everything tested. Pseudoscience doesn't follow the scientific method by the book, which is what makes it less reliable.
Also, science often has more reliable and credible authors when compared to pseudoscience, in the sense that topics that the authors are writing about relate directly to the area of study and knowledge. Pseudoscience often has authors who act more like businessmen than scientists, especially in the detox industry. Don't forget about the source of the information. Scientific journals are a much more reliable place to find information on scientific topics when compared to popular magazines and tabloids, which is where a lot of pseudoscience can be found.
An excellent analysis. Team 1, anything you would like to add?
We believe Team 2 has said it all.
Well, Ben, it looks like Team 2 is the winner of the Biobowl. Great answer to the big question. Overall, there is no clear-cut answer to the question, as a lot of factors contribute to the final answer. You all hit a good amount of the main points. See you next week for another episode of Biobowl.